Hey folks, right, okay, coming up in 10 minutes. So if you're watching an archive version, you might want to fast forward a wee bit to the top of the show. Otherwise, yeah, there you go. 10 minutes, Bill Etheridge coming on. Cool. Blimey, that was hectic. Oh, did that wake you up? Oh. Hello? Hello?
I'm feeling so hollow. Don't you know?
Yeah, we know.
Don't you know?
Cool.
I'm living in shadow. Don't you know? Don't you know? I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know?
I don't know, tell us.
I fell for fool's gold. I fell for fool's gold. What did I know? What did I know? You were fool's gold. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. And I did it all for love. Yes, I did it all for love. Oh, they say fools believe in it, so I guess I'm one of them. Oh, don't you?
If Bill Etheridge is watching, for God's sake, give us a bell, man, for goodness sake.
I fell for
Yeah, hook up on Skype.
gold. What did I know? What did I know? I fell for fools.
Oh, God.
Gold. I fell for fools. Gold. What did I know? What did I know?
That's the Euro for you.
Yes, I did.
That's what it is, sir.
Yes, I did. Yes, I did.
Oh, I don't know what's going on there. Oh, blimey. Oh! Yeah. Copyright free, Facebook. Crying out loud. Share the show, folks. God bless you. Thank you. And somebody find my guest. I tell you, where's my... Okay, 2 minutes, people. Oh no. Don't do that. Don't do that. Blimey, this is hectic, isn't it? Yeah. Right. Oh, what's going on there? Oh, it keeps jumping, the audio on these tracks. I don't know what's going on with any of them. 20 seconds per 30 seconds. Oh, yeah, let's face it. Running late. Okay, 1 minute, people. I am running a wee bit late. I do apologize. Chicken? Don't want any chicken. Okay, that's enough of that, for goodness sake. All right, yeah, thank you. Oh, blimey. Hey folks, good evening, good people. Welcome to the Daily Brexit. Holding democracy to account, fighting for self-determination and exposing plutocracy. I'm Olly Connelly, thanks for turning up. And now, what now? Oh, blimey. To lose your party is one thing, yeah, but when you also lose your job, that might just be careless. MEP Bill Etheridge is back on the show, basically because he's looking for a job. Plus, I guess he'll tell us about the Libertarian Party, which is nice. And about the Euro Disney Parliament, come May, the makeup of which may drastically change. Insight on that, I hope. And he wants a job, yeah, proper job. Well, I say that, but I don't know where he is, actually. Apparently, he's trying to find me on Skype. A big cheers to Tim, who's helping him to do that, apparently. Taking your calls on Discord at gov.ly/rant. And I'll see you in the comments. Please help the show. PayPal.me/Brexit. Cheers. Man, share the show, all that. Aye. Right, okay, so Bill is not here. So I don't know if he's running late. Apparently he was trying to find me, according to Tim, so we'll get there, I dare say. Yes. So let's have a look and see what's going on in the world of fake stream, first of all, and what's going on today. Obviously, the papers this morning were all covering Tusk, saying that there was a special place in hell for those who backed Brexit without a plan, coming from those that set up the euro without a plan. Well, of course, the plan was that they wanted complete integration and federalization. They just didn't bother to tell anybody. But anyway, yeah, no, sure, mate. Lovely to have your opinion. So, yeah, they're all talking about that. All of them, basically. Failure to seal most Brexit trade deals infuriates business leaders, according to FT, Euro fanboys that they are. Daily Mail covering 999. Homelessness on the front page of Daily Mirror. Quite right. Britain shame forced onto the streets. The mum whose unborn baby died of the cold. The hard-working builder who broke his back and lost his job. The wife evicted on her birthday. Dispatches from 24 Hours on the homeless front line, which will horrify the nation. And yeah, Dave Simpson's been on here a couple of times recently talking about exactly this, from the Welsh perspective going on over there. Yeah, there you go. I suspect that is my guess. Bill, good evening.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you, sir?
Not too bad. I gave up on the Skype and I just use the normal way. I hope this is acceptable to you.
Oh, that's fine, Bill. That's fine. We're not going to be able to get to see your chivvy by the looks of it, but hey, not to worry. Not to worry. No, that's lovely. Thank you very much indeed for joining us. Lots to cover today. Just going through a few bits going on in the news today. And so please do chip in, Bill, and tell us your opinion on some of these things. I thought one of the most telling stories, this is Westminster Monsters coverage of it. France recalls Italian ambassador after criticism of Macron and yellow vest support. And what was the story yesterday? The story was that the Italian, I can't remember who it was, Luigi, had been in touch and supported and basically praised the yellow vests. And now France recalling its ambassador. The French government have recalled their ambassador for Italy amid increasing friction between Emmanuel Macron and Italy's anti-establishment government. France's foreign ministry claimed that France has been for several months the target of repeated baseless attacks and outrageous statements, adding all of these actions are creating a serious situation which is raising questions about the Italian government's intentions towards France. Bill, what do you think about this?
Well, it ties in with what Nigel's been saying, where he says they're showing the united front, but actually they're starting to crack. And knowing some of the people who were involved in the coalition in Italy with the 5-star movement, they're very anti-establishment. I mean, really so. And, I think Macron, being the ultimate establishment figure, is starting to feel the heat, as are many leaders across Europe, because with the combination of the rise of, I would call them patriotic forces, as well as the pressure of the Brexit situation, they're starting to crack. And all we've got to do now is watch the cracks unfold and hope that for once in her life, Theresa May grows a tiny bit of spine and things are going our way.
France recalls Rome envoy over worst verbal onslaught since the war, says The Guardian. Move comes after Italian deputy PM met leaders of the anti-Macron Gilets jaunes. Quite incredible. On other news, and May, I'll deliver Brexit on time. Actually, I just thought I'd throw that in there for a laugh, yeah. But Euroguido is saying EU predicts UK will grow faster than Germany in 2019. Mark Carney's latest gloomy predictions, according to Guido, for the British economy have elicited all the usual told you so responses from Remainers with very short memories. The Bank of England has predicted a 1.2% growth for 2019. Before the referendum, Remainers said we would be deep in recession now. There was, in fact, another set of 2019 forecasts also released this morning by the European Commission. The EU actually upgraded Britain's 2019 forecast to 1.3%, the same as France, Belgium, Sweden, and the Eurozone as a whole. Struggling Germany is lagging behind on 1.1%, while Italy is down to 0.2%. Despite Brexit, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, the reality here is that the Eurozone is going into a recession. They are struggling. And when you see figures come from Carney, who's basically a paid bullshitter for the establishment, nobody believes anything that he says anymore. The reality is that these people on the continent are struggling with their economies. They need to get a deal with the UK. You've heard German industry start to make a noise about this now. If they don't strike a deal and it goes to a no-deal situation, which is what I'm praying for every day of the week, they will, in a very short period of time, be begging us to do a free trade deal because, frankly, they can't cope in the current situation without open access to our markets. And this is another factor which is all playing into our favour. The circumstances are perfect if the Prime Minister, as I said earlier, can just take a strong line.
Well, Brexit Live, according to Express, Donald Tusk ignores May's demands and backs Corbyn's customs union plan, is the latest there. Donald Tusk has ignored Theresa May's demands to renegotiate the Irish border backstop and thrown his weight behind Jeremy Corbyn's vision for a soft Brexit. In a speech earlier, the European Council president said Labour's plan to remain in the customs union with the EU would be a promising way out of the current impasse. Oh, geez. I mean, where's the Brexit? Where's the Brexit bill? Sorry, go on, please.
Well, it's a way out because it's a surrender. The point of this is as well, and here where I'm going to be unfashionable and have a little sympathy for Tusk and Co. Because they're constantly being briefed by UK fifth columnists, the likes of Blair, Mandelson. You see them coming out in the Eurostar the same time as we're all coming out here, telling them, stay strong with the public support for a second referendum or for staying in is growing. And they're being lied to by these people because all of us know public support is getting stronger behind a real Brexit now. But these people are thinking, we're getting information here from inside. We should stand firm. It's not going to work. And they will realise that when it gets even closer to deadline day, when they start to utterly panic. You can feel it out here. You talk to people and you're listening on conversations in the corridors, and they're starting to think, wow, the British haven't folded. What are we going to do? What are we going to do? They are starting to worry, and that's an understatement. And frankly, Tusk and Co need to start actually facing reality that even if May is a weak and soft jellyfish, there are people in Parliament who are stopping her giving way, and thank God for the DUP, by the way. And that is going to create a situation where they've got to give ground, or they will face the uncertainty of a no-deal Brexit, which I think will be absolutely brilliant, but they're terrified of.
Just a bit more meat on the bones of this story, because it potentially is quite important, this again is from the Express. Brexit betrayal, Theresa May looking at Jeremy Corbyn's customs union plan, admits number 10. Theresa May is considering Jeremy Corbyn's Brexit proposal, sparking fears that the UK's departure from the EU could be derailed. The Prime Minister is looking with interest at the Labour leader's Brexit blueprint, but there are considerable points of difference, according to a senior official in Mrs May's office. Mr Corbyn set out his 5-point plan, including I thought it was Keir Starmer's 5-point plan, actually, including a permanent customs union with the EU in a letter to the Prime Minister. The Downing Street source said, "It is welcome that the leader of the opposition is engaging in this. It is important that we continue to hold discussions to find a way forward to deliver Brexit." It's extremely frustrating, and really, Bill, it seems to me that we're just not going to get Brexit here for the 29th of March.
Well, there's two aspects to this. We've been told from several sources out here, and it's been told to lots of different people, that behind the scenes, the British state, I won't say government because that would imply politicians doing it, have already inquired as to a variety of different extensions to Article 50. Anything from 3 months, which is doable within the treaties, up to 12 months, which is basically going to require them to break their own treaties and may actually lead to a requirement for new European elections. These extensions have, in theory, been agreed, and they require the British government to ask for them. However, if the government continues to say that it's going to leave on the specified date, the default position is no-deal Brexit. And there isn't time, actually, to get something else through Parliament. With all these delays, they have to get at least 2 votes through Parliament, plus a vote of the European Parliament, within a month. It's not going to happen.
If there is an extension to the transition, does that mean that we will be having European parliamentary elections in the UK?
This is the issue that they are currently trying to work their way around. The very last thing that the British government and the EU want is for there to be elections in the UK, because quite clearly anti-EU forces from whatever parties will absolutely romp those elections without any shadow of a doubt. And that's the feedback that's being put forward from all sources out here to the EU. Now, they don't want, even if it's for a short period of time, 35, 40 rampant Brexiteers causing havoc out here. That's the last thing they want. So they are trying to find ways to bypassed their own treaties and their own rules, whereby they can extend this out and hold in abeyance the elections for these seats, which, by the way, they've already allocated to other countries. So, in theory, what they might be able to do is hold fire and say the current crop of MEPs remain for however long, 3, 6, 12 months. And when they finally leave, those seats are then carved up with, the other countries that remain in the EU. It's a mess, and they're trying very hard to untangle their own treaties.
Sorry, Bill, I am confused. Yeah. No, what do you... So you're saying that the current crop of MEPs from the UK would be invited to stay on for the period of the transition? No.
That is a possibility. I'm not stating that that's a fact.
And
that's a possibility.
But you're suggesting that the reason that they would like that as a viable option from their point of view is because there is no debate in the UK surrounding an election.
Look, the last thing they want is a European-based election in the UK, because they've got information that views have hardened on Brexit.
Yeah, it completely goes against the referendum result, doesn't it? Just completely.
Yeah, I mean, they could be looking, instead of all right, there's 1 or 2 Eurosceptic Conservatives, so instead of low 20s number of hardcore Brexiteers out here, they could be looking at over 30. And the last thing they want is that to happen, because it will bring this whole thing to a standstill, as well as the fact that across the rest of Europe, France, Italy, Sweden, Holland, the sort of anti-establishment forces are predicted to gain massive amounts of seats. They've got to be very careful, and they're thinking carefully, because they could see their whole project grind to a standstill if they allow UK elections.
When do you think we will have an answer to this about the... I mean, okay, so I guess the way it is with the way things are going with this parliamentary process, it's now going to be, at least another 3 weeks until there's another vote on May's New Deal, I think that she said, no? And then...
Yeah, February the 14th.
February the 14th, okay. Is it... Sorry, February the 14th? Just...
Oh, well, February the 14th, she's coming back. She's going to face Parliament. She's got to face Parliament on February the 14th. Right,
okay. I read a story also that she's trying to put it back to next month, any meaningful vote on another deal. We're basically getting so... We're basically getting so close to the end of the 2-year deal under Article 50. And then, it's just incredible, the idea that we could somehow be tied in with the EU still, but have no representation there. What do we have no veto either? Is that the deal? Do you know any of this? Does anybody know?
Well, the honest answer is no. That's the thing here. There is chaos. The speculation I've given you there is one set of thoughts. There's other ideas that are being floated around. I genuinely think that the visits of Theresa May out here are top show and meaningless. What's going on behind the scenes with the civil servants and other people coming out here is the real conversation. And that's a conversation where they're desperate to find a way where they can extend this until there's a deal struck. Because, otherwise, unless there is a really major situation in the UK Parliament where serious, actually it has to become legislation, is passed, we will leave at the end of March. And at the current state, it's almost inconceivable that a deal would have been passed through both parliaments by that time.
So there's a lot of
paddling under the water going on.
But the real concern, Bill, is that somehow, not least due to this conspirator, John Bercow, in my opinion, they will extend Article 50. Look, it can be done. Obviously, it can be done, and as you say, they've got an ally in the hot seat there who can twist the rules to push for it to happen. Yeah.
But as much as I fear this, as much as you, I think we have to acknowledge it's not going to be an easy process for them. Everything that goes through now is going to be settled with a handful of votes either way. And every time Theresa May says, as she said today, we leave as scheduled, it gets harder and harder for them to backpedal. And that's, looking at the support from her own side, which will evaporate if she starts to backpedal. It's an absolutely chaotic situation, which may end up really working well for us.
Yeah, no, that's right. Chaotic, but you do actually sound conservatively confident that we're going to get a no deal.
The more that the cracks show, the more that there is no solid proposal, and the longer that lasts, the better it is. And I really feel, I don't trust anything that these people say in the media and the press, but you can gather a lot from walking these corridors, and the sheer state of panic, every time I hear it makes me full of joy, because I think the more they're panicking, the more concerned they are, the more chance we've got of really breaking free. By accident, actually, but managing it.
Okay, we like a bit of good entertainment on this show and a bit of comedy and feel-good factor. So please, please, please tell us about the worry in Brussels.
Well, I like to have a little wander around from time to time to stretch the legs, and the common thing that you hear in every corridor, because this place is like a maze, a warren of corridors, and all of them are talking about Brexit. Even if it's in a foreign language, all you need blah 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 blah, blah Brexit, blah blah blah, and it's constantly the British. Who do they think they are? The British. Do they still think they're Great Britain? I can't believe it. They won't give ground. What do we do? What do we do? And it's constant, and it's coming from
so they're deluded.
So many sources.
So they're deluded. They really are just having a power trip by the sounds of it. If they honestly think that them, unelected technocrats, crony elected at best, are somehow superior to at least some semblance of democracy, we still can go and vote for the Libertarian Party or whatever else instead of LibLabCon if we want to. No, they are deluded by the sounds of it.
They think that we are on a national ego trip. They think that we're totally deluded. They think that it's impossible to imagine a nation state can break free in this way, and they're so shocked by it. They're struggling to deal with it. If you have an argument or a discussion with someone, it helps to be able to understand the opposite point of view. They simply can't understand it. They can't get their head around it. And I can't help but I walk around. I think they must think I'm mad, but I walk around giggling because I can hear this going on, thinking, yes, you don't know how to deal with this, and every day, every week that goes by, but you don't know how to deal with this. We're a step closer to breaking free.
Fantastic. I just want to play this actually quickly. This was where is it? Let's see if I can find this from Katie Hopkins. This is a great clip. I want to play this, and so have a listen, folks. Let me just see if I can. You can see it on your screen now. Yeah, Katie Hopkins having a wander around the European Parliament.
The European Parliament today. There's a couple of things here they're really nervous about, and it's completely in contrast to everything you're being told in the mainstream. Number one, they're really scared of the populists. On the 29th of May, the European elections will be in, and they know there are going to be huge gains for the populists, and many of these people around me here will lose their seats and their staff and their expenses, and that will be a joy. The second thing
that will be a joy
is how they're going to replace the British money. And it suddenly dawned on them that when we go, they're going to need to make up that shortfall. So that's a story you're not hearing about. They're acting big, they're acting tough, but in fact, they're going to miss us when we're gone. And frankly, I couldn't be more delighted that we get to say au revoir to this hellhole of a place.
Well, that tickled my fancy. Bill, tell me, what is the new makeup of the European Parliament going to be, do you think? What sort of disparity is there going to be?
Well, I think, I couldn't hear the clip when Katie speaking, but I think the disparity after the next elections will be huge, because there'll be a lot of anti-establishment people elected, and they're terrified of this, and they know it's coming.
How big, how much of a change is it going to be when it comes to it?
It's going to be vast. At the moment, the power brokers are the EPP group, and they're joined often by the S&D, which are the socialists, and the ECR, which are the so-called conservatives. Mm-hmm. They are expecting massive losses all across the continent. And they're expecting, currently the fringe groups, the EFDD that we're in, and the ENF, which is the Front National, they're expecting those groups to become huge. They're expecting new groups to crop up. They are utterly terrified.
It's going to mean a lot for example, the likes of Macron as well, isn't it, in France? If there's a whole bunch of Front National MEPs, didn't they change the name or something actually of that party? But if there's a bunch of Le Pen MEPs in France, it's going to put more pressure on the likes of him, I guess. Let's take a
Well,
few.
it is, and they've tried to change the rules. Only the other week, we had a vote in one of the plenaries where they were trying to make it harder for groups of smaller groups and by necessity anti-establishment groups to be formed out here. And fortunately, and I'm very grateful to our five-star colleagues from Italy who led the fight, we stopped this. So there will be an opportunity for these new groups to form out here and cause hell.
What were they trying to do? Who?
It was it was a motion from Richard Corbett, the Labour MEP, which had broad consensus support from most of the sort of establishment forces in the Parliament, where they were going to change the rules to make it massively harder for groups like the FDD, the NF, the troublemakers to form. It was going to. There were all sorts of technical details they were trying to add in, and amazingly, we all joined forces all across the Parliament, and we stopped them winning the vote. They still won, but they needed I think it was a 2/3 majority or something like that, and we stopped them. So the opportunity is perfect for these people coming in after the next European election to cause hell.
Wow. Very, very exciting. Okay, Debbie Shaw says, doesn't Britain hold all the cards in a business sense of our payments in and have no reason to be begging? Bill?
Absolutely. we have no reason at all to be begging. And this payment that we've been talking about making has no basis in treaty, no basis in law. It was something that was just agreed because the government and the civil servants thought that would be a jolly nice thing to do. Well, it's absolute nonsense. We shouldn't be making any payment at all. And if we do make any kind of payment, it should be completely beholden on the fact that they give us a free, open trade agreement with zero interference in the way we're governed.
Yeah. Ellie Mae Renton says, Frexit next. Lots of their sacred nation states have had enough. After Brexit, the EU is done, and they know it. Kathy Farrell says, hopefully a very big change. Stavros, they are so scared of the populists because they are Bolsheviks. And Thomas White says, to Caroline Stevens, I think, I believe Katie went in with someone to do a report. That's how she got in to the European Parliament in that clip, he believes. Sarah Boland, more corruption from the EU. Nigel Brown, they will start placing a ban on EU MPs that are leaning to the right. Caroline Stevens, so can anyone go in to that building? Can anybody walk in there? I would have thought you get pretty frisked up these days, no, Bill?
You have to be signed in by an MEP.
Right.
That you can't just enter, and then when you enter, it's imagine an airport security. It's the same thing. Your bags have got to be scanned, and you've got to go through the detectors.
Yeah.
But unless you've turned up with an MEP signature, you can't get in. So Katie Hopkins, and she went in with another guy, the journalist whose name I forget, journalist and author who wrote the book about the Greens, calling them watermelons. Can't remember his name, but they went in together.
Okay. I guess that they are. I guess they are pretty conscious of security in that building now. They've had the yellow vests protesting outside. They don't seem to be taking the yellow vests at all seriously, though. It's a little bit like with the concerns of many Catalans in Spain. The EU, they were kind of mute over that, and they seem very mute over the yellow vests, even though the yellow vests are coming across the whole of the EU bloc, no?
Yeah, I mean, look, we have protests outside the building every day of the week from some group or another. And frankly, as much as many of them are good causes and so on, they have no effect whatsoever. It's the police fall into place. There are shields put into place, sometimes barbed wires used. They're on hand with batons and tear gas if anyone gets a bit too lively. It doesn't unless you actually go over and try and talk to them, which, to their credit, many MEPs do, but unless you actually try to, it makes no difference whatsoever, and they are totally ambivalent towards all of this.
It's incredible. Okay, I want to ask you about. The last time we spoke, a lot of water's gone under the bridge. Actually, in most respects, apart from Brexit, which is pretty much the same. But for you, certainly a great deal. So, why did you leave UKIP?
I felt that UKIP had fundamentally changed. In the shape of the new leader, Gerard Batten, I draw a comparison between Gerard and Corbyn. For 20 years, both of them were kind of on the backbenches, considered somewhat fringe and extreme, and then they came to power and they changed the shape of their parties. Now, I don't have a problem at all with UKIP members deciding they want to go in a different direction. And under Gerard's leadership, they've become sort of a lot more nationalist. Now, and economically, by the way, the policies are much more big state and left wing than I feel comfortable with. So I felt that the right thing to do would be to remain within the FDD group, which is presided over by Nigel Farage. We stick entirely to our manifesto pledges we were elected upon, and we continue down that route. I couldn't, as someone who's a libertarian-minded person, who's economically right-wing, I simply could not go along with the ideas that Batten and co have sort of taken over UKIP with. But good luck to them. I don't know. No hard feelings from my point of view. It's simply not the UKIP I joined.
Are libertarians not nationalists?
Well, some of my colleagues in the Libertarian Party would say I was far more nationalist than them. I think libertarians, when you take it down to the more real sort of crux of it, think more about the sort of sovereignty of the individual rather than the concerns of the nation state.
Yeah, sure.
So,
yeah.
I think that there is a big difference.
Yeah, no, fair play. Okay. Nonetheless, I mean, what's happened with UKIP essentially is to open up to a wider choir. To offer more people a political home, people that haven't been represented anywhere close to mainstream politics, and at last now have somewhere to go to that is at least could possibly get a few seats, or could have gleaned possibly a few seats at the next election. I'm not sure that's the case now with the Brexit party, but people have been politically homeless now that needed a place, and frankly, Gerard Batten's given them that place. No.
Yes, he has. I agree with you. He certainly has that, and the membership has grown dramatically, and actually the new members are even more than the headline figure would suggest, because there's been a hell of a lot leave, and yet the membership itself has still gone up. So, yeah, he has given a lot of people a political home that they didn't have before. However, the one thing, and I would gently respect I'm not in the business of fighting UKIP, is that, you look at their opinion poll rating at the moment, which is 7%. At a time like this, with Brexit in the news every day, one would have hoped it would be a lot higher.
And these are good people. What's the problem? What's the problem? I'm not really sure why so many people have left UKIP, to be honest with you. Actually, I joined the thing. It was a very cynical move, really, because it's purely pragmatic. I'm a floating voter here, but I did join UKIP, I don't know, 6 weeks ago or something like that, because I thought that they are the one party with a chance to have an influence in a coalition that could maybe just throw the character of the Commons in a more positive direction in the future. I'm not sure that that's possible now, but I don't really understand, Bill, why so many people left. Was it just because I joined, or no? Seriously, please.
No. The reason is really a straightforward one. When I joined UKIP in 2011, the party's policies and drive and ideas were very much small state, lower taxation. There was a lot of libertarianism thrown in there, along with strong patriotism, but it was a very different direction of travel. Now, you look at Gerard Batten's UKIP, and it's got policies in there which include nationalisations, which, I accept some of them are popular, but they're not the same. It's got a very direct and a huge emphasis on issues of multiculturalism, which I understand and agree with some of it. Mm-hmm. But I think the emphasis has gone so far onto that for a start, I don't agree with all of it. And secondly, I very much doubt it's going to win seats with your normal, everyday floating voter who was a little bit frightened of us before. I think they might be just a little bit more, put off now. But council elections will prove that one way or the other.
So, there are policy differences there, but we are in remarkable times. Surely Brexit trumps everything else.
I agree, and that's why I still back and support and work with the guy who, in my estimation, has the most positive effect on getting us out of the EU, which is Nigel Farage. I think that Gerard Batten, for all of he has strong points, and I've known him many years. Mm-hmm. I don't think he's a saleable commodity as a leader, and I think some of his leadership traits are rather autocratic, to say the least. And I simply think that, when you're looking at someone to unite behind for Brexit, in my opinion, that man would have to be Nigel Farage, because he's got what none of us have got. And it's not just Gerard. I haven't got it. None of us have got the ability to communicate and make the point the way Nigel does. He did a speech recently in a plenary that didn't get any national media coverage. You know what? He went onto YouTube and got 6.2 million hits. Now, I don't think anyone else can do that.
You kind of sound a little bit as though maybe you got on the wrong bus there, that maybe you should have waited for the next bus, the Brexit Party, rather than jumping onto the Libertarian Party.
Well, the bus of the Libertarian Party, as far as I'm aware, hasn't left the station yet. Not the Libertarian, the Brexit Party hasn't left the station yet. So, I think there's a lot of decisions to be made whether or not that one takes off. But, I'm certainly very much a believer in Nigel, and I think that if that party were to take off, it would scare the living daylights out of the establishment, because he can reach the parts that other patriotic politicians can't reach.
Okay, let's take a few comments here. Rick Bond says, Farage opposed Marine Le Pen. Look how many show her the respect she deserves. If you want to comment on any of this, please do, Bill. Debbie Shaw, I've rejoined.
Can I quickly say that
please.
He hasn't opposed Marine Le Pen. He's actually got a large amount of respect for her, because both myself and Nigel used to sit quite close to her in the Parliament, and she's a fantastic speaker and a very strong woman. What Nigel did at the time when we first joined out here was to say that there were significant political differences between us and the Front National as was. So whilst we respected her and admired her, we didn't feel that the groups could align at that time.
Okay. Debbie Shaw says, I have rejoined UKIP in anticipation of another referendum where we can get the truth out. I don't believe in controlled politics. Rick Bond, forget politics, Debbie. This is war. Stavros, I don't need a political place. Parties are the reason for all this. And he swears. Dave Witcher is saying that he's being censored. Dave, mate, God bless you. I'm in Armwood. Your feed kept freezing tonight. Talking about Elite's fella. Yeah, probably. Chris Rumbold, regardless of his politics, Bill is probably the only MEP that comes on a media platform and tells us as it is in Brussels. He is at present our eyes and ears. Sarah Boland, UKIP has the most clout of all the Eurosceptic parties. It takes a long time to gain enough momentum to be able to challenge the main parties. And I have to say, Bill, that is the very much the kind of concern I think a lot of people feel, that I feel. Just really from, as I say, a pragmatic choice. It did seem to me that there would be so many people, disillusioned Labour voters and Conservative voters who probably would vote for UKIP were there a general election anytime soon, and that we did or do have an opportunity to make an impact there, to get a few coalition seats maybe, to try and hold this government to account. And that would surely send out such a powerful message if there were a few UKIP MPs, just a few Brexit Party MPs, MPs who represent Brexit. If they went in from any of these parties, surely that is a message now that we are less likely to be able to send because of the formation of, for example, the Libertarian Party and the Brexit Party, possibly the DVP, Britain First, so on and so forth. We are so fragmented. No, we don't need more.
Well, look, I don't actually disagree with what you're saying. I think the issue, a couple of issues there. First of all, the Libertarian Party has been around for a long time, so I don't think we can class them as something that was just recently formed. But the other ones, yeah, I know what you're saying. The difficulty is, from my point of view, of being someone who, in a small way, does represent as an elected politician and is asked to speak on the media and so on and so forth. I've never, ever gone on to a media show, done an interview, and said something I don't believe in. I can't do it. I cannot do it. And now, if I'd have remained with UKIP under the direction of Mr. Batten, I would have been asked questions about a whole range of subjects and asked to support them, and I couldn't have done it. So then I'd have had people within the party saying, "Oh, you're being disloyal. It's not fair." So I felt the right thing to do was, if that's the direction of the party, get someone to say these things who actually believes in it, because I'm not going to lie. The other thing is, yes, it does take a long time to establish parties. It's a lot of bloody hard work, and I know I've been out there on the streets pounding away with a lot of people who may be listening now, working away leafleting and talking to people on street stalls. It's really hard work. However, if you have an internationally well-known figure like Nigel Farage, you do tend to take a little bit of a leap forward. And the final thing I'd say is, look, from my point of view, if I was in a constituency where there was a choice between the establishment parties and any one of the pro-Brexit anti-establishment parties, I'd vote for that party.
Okay, so now, what is your status as an MEP? You're an independent MEP, presumably.
I'm an MEP in the EFDD group with the Libertarian Party against my name because I'm a member of it. But it's hardly. I could hardly say I class myself as the leader of the Libertarian Party in Parliament, because it's only me. So I really look at it from the point of view of being another EFDD member, along with X amount of others. I think there's about 30 of us from different countries.
Is that a bit cheeky, seeing as you were elected on a UKIP ticket?
I understand, because I get a lot of stick from UKIP members.
I bet you do.
I do, and I genuinely understand what they're saying, and it was my intention to see it through as a UKIP MEP, regardless of whether I was fully on side or not, and see it through to the end. But I genuinely believe that the party has changed so much now that it has actually changed from many of the aspects of the manifesto I was elected on. And for me, knowing that Nigel, who was the big voice in the party at the time, the man who set many of those policies, knowing that even he was starting to feel unhappy and eventually left, I felt vindicated that at the end of the day, I'm still doing what I said I was going to do. I'm just not doing it under a party that has changed remarkably in a very short period of time. And I don't think anyone can disagree with that. Even if they like the direction of change, we must all accept it's changed dramatically.
Yes, no, absolutely. Well, I have to say, I'm pleased that you're there. This is just so that you can come and tell us what disarray they're in the EU. That's excellent entertainment. What is the Libertarian Party about? What is the difference between the Libertarian Party policy-wise and that of UKIP?
Well, for a start, they don't go for nationalisations and state control. That's predominantly the main factor for me. They're all about lower taxation and more individual freedom. There's a lot of similarities, a huge amount of similarities, which was why I was they appealed to me in the first place. I would say to any of the listeners who've been around for a while in politics that if you look at the UKIP of 2014, there ain't a lot of difference between that and the Libertarian Party in terms of beliefs and manifesto. Of course, the big difference is, and let's be honest, the Libertarian Party is not going to pull up any trees at any elections. And I felt that was another reason why I was justified to a degree, because when I left UKIP, I didn't join the Conservatives or a party that would have given me some kind of electoral advantage. I joined a party that, frankly, has very little chance of giving any kind of electoral advantage, but I joined them to demonstrate that my opinions hadn't changed and that UKIP had.
Where do you see your political career going now? Because I mean, realistically, you're gonna, you're not gonna be an MEP for much longer, and yeah, you're going to be with a tiny party there.
Well, look, my aim, and I'll be absolutely straightforward about this, is I want to play a part in the next few days, weeks, months, however long it is, in pushing for World Trade Organization Brexit. When that is achieved, which I truly hope there's a very strong chance it will be, I intend to retire from politics. I don't have any desire to continue with pushing things. I feel like I'll have run my race, and if I can go back into normal life, having said, look, I wasn't all that big a deal, but I played a very small part in getting independence for our country. You know what? I'll be absolutely delirious with that, and I'll settle for that as my deathbed, comment. I'm not really looking for any further political career after that. The only thing that would ever inspire me to continue was if we were betrayed on Brexit, and if we somehow ended either staying in or in an appalling deal, in which case I would, stick around and be a noisy bugger and make some noise about it. But other than that, I don't have a political ambition anymore.
Okay, let's take a few comments. If anybody wants to call in, gov.ly/rant. Helen Lasky-Smith says, I voted for Bill and still have his badge. Love L. Caroline Stevens, did anybody do maths at school? The voting system is rigged. She's right, no? She is right, Bill, no?
Well, yeah, of course it is. The system is set up in such a way that it's very difficult, if not impossible, for a smaller party to make a breakthrough. And one of the great difficulties of this is, while we can all acknowledge it, and even the ruling powers acknowledge it, there's no way turkeys are going to vote for Christmas and change it, because they know that if they did, suddenly they'd see the vote share of the old parties plummet, and the smaller parties who appeal to people more with their policies would actually grow massively, because people would think there was a point in voting for them.
William Plonk says, Nigel, I'm afraid, is softening his stance. He did his job well getting us a referendum, and then tried his luck while he was popular at trying to get a seat in Parliament, but was scuttled by the Tory party, the very one he cut his teeth with, being one of Moggy Thatcher's boys, along with Blair, Cameron, Cleggy. So he knows the score, and he is now closing ranks. I just wonder.
I can say that just for that, I spoke to Nigel very recently, and if this is him toughening his line, I'd hate to see what anyone thinks is him toughening his line. The man is on fire, and there is no way. I can tell you that. Please believe me. Whatever the impression that's been given over the past couple of years, right now that man is absolutely full of passion and fire and determination to drive this over the line. I promise you that.
Well, that's all very well, isn't it? But we had Gwaine Towler on here, head of press for UKIP for a long time, 14 years or something, who was said that he appealed both to Farage and to Batten to try and get them to talk, and they're not interested. If those two were absolutely dead serious, 100% about Brexit, and all of you, frankly, on the political field, then surely you would set aside your differences and talk. And they're not. Gwaine said, they're not. There's no way that's going to happen. It just seems to me that they are putting personality politics before their country.
Well, I know Gwaine well, and he's telling the truth, yeah. There's no doubt about that. Look, the situation with Nigel and Gerard is that for 20 years they have hated each other's guts on a degree that I have very rarely seen between people.
We don't care. We don't care.
You may not. Look, you may not care. I don't care. But I can't exaggerate this at all. How much they dislike each other. Now, others of us, yes, should have and actually did try to talk to Gerard. But Gerard is a very hard man to talk to. When he decides that something is right, whether, and the listeners may think he's right more often than not, but once he's set his mind on something, that's it. That is it. There is no conversation to be had with the man.
Is he more stubborn than Farage, you're saying?
Oh, no, they're both pretty stubborn. I just tend to think that Nigel's a bit more sort of stubborn, more in the direction I agree with. I'm not going to make out that Nigel's a saint and Gerard's a devil. It's not like that. They're similar in some ways because they're both utter hard cases of the highest order, but they have differences of opinion, and, they could live to 1,000,000 years old each. They will never agree.
A different kind of baton, I'm guessing. Debbie Shaw says, baton power passing game for centuries. Talking about politics and more general, I think. Caroline Stevens, ghost votes were employed in ensuring Macron won. Mark Deere, good man, stands by his own convictions. You have to hand it to him for that. I'm not sure whether he's talking about Farage or Batten there. Nigel Brown, don't vote. It just encourages the bastards. Also treasonous. Article 61. What would you say about Article 61? Bill?
What are we talking now about treasoners in the European treaties and market?
That's right.
And so on. Yeah. Well, look, I agree with all that, and I've had big conversations with Dave Witcher. I've spoken to, and I've spoken to many people in the White Pen Dragons about it, and other people actually who aren't involved in that, but who regard themselves as seeing this point of view. And I agree. Look, I agree, and we discussed this before. I agree. However, all I will say is, in the world we live in, it's not enough to be right. You have to win via the rules of the game, because there ain't another way of doing it. And so, I hope people won't be too harsh on me for saying this, that whilst it's brilliant to be right, and I agree with you, the only way to change anything is to play under the rules of the corrupt system, because otherwise you're just left being right, but being ruled by people who are traitors. You
see, Bill, that comes back to, though, precisely the last question about Batten and Farage not coming together, because, we are divided, ruled. All the libertarians, all the Brexiteers, all the constitutionalists, whatever you want to call them, we're all so divided with these various different groups. We're just being herded around by globalists.
Look, there is only one man who, in my experience, has been able to get a libertarian, Reagan and Thatcher loving person like me, and a socialist in some ways, nationalist like Gerard, and a social democrat like Patrick O'Flynn, and all sorts of different people. There's only one man who's ever been able to unite a party with those people in it, and it was Nigel Farage. Gerard Batten's approach to leadership has been that all the people who don't fall into his category have gone. Nigel, for all of his stubbornness and for many of his flaws, of which there are many, managed to keep us all together as a team. It hasn't happened since he left, and that's down to not just Gerard, but Henry Bolton, Paul Nuttall, Diane James for a few days. You name it. No one could hold it together except Nigel, and that's a quantifiable fact.
Nigel recommended Paul Nuttall, didn't he? And Henry Bolton, and they were both an absolute unmitigated disaster, really, weren't they? A lot of people just don't really trust Nigel Farage now. I'm not saying whether that's fair or not, but there are things that he doesn't talk about, at least these days. Things that are very fundamental to our association with the EU, one would think, and other things, some race issues and what have you. He seems to be running a bit scared of. Hasn't he gone a little bit centrist in his politics? Isn't he kind of cowing to the establishment a bit these days? People don't trust him. What do you say to that?
Well, I understand, and I've been frustrated and annoyed by the fact that when Nigel resigned as leader, I was mortified, and all of the problems that happened since could be ascribed to the fact that he didn't properly bring anyone through to replace him, and the ones who did get the nod from him weren't up to the job. Although I must say I have huge sympathy for Paul Nuttall, who's a personal friend of mine, but that's another matter. But I think that Nigel's made mistakes, and I understand why people are unhappy. However, to think that he's gone centrist is not true. What Nigel does, he thinks very deeply about what message he can get out that will get traction, that will help the cause. What we have to understand, and I know this at first hand, and anyone who follows me on Facebook or sees my Twitter account knows, I comment on everything. And I tell you what, there's only a certain number of things that get out, because there's only a certain number of things that you're going to get any kind of media traction with. Nigel's very cute at finding out what those things are and talking about them and not wasting his time on other things, because they will not get coverage. That's the horrible reality of it. And once again, I promise everyone out there, I've spoken to Nigel several times in the last couple of weeks. In fact, I've spoken to him over the last couple of months more than I've spoken to him in a long, long time. The fire is lit. The man is absolutely passionate about getting our independence. And that really should be the big focal point that all of us care about right now.
Yeah, no, completely. I agree. But what it would possibly come to, and what I would estimate it would come to, is that we're going to see Article 50 extended, and then Nigel's going to officially launch the Brexit Party. And I suspect, from the amount of talk about Mr. Farage that you've given this evening, that there is a distinct possibility that he would do that. And then people are going to have to make a big choice, aren't they? They're going to have to decide, are they going to retain their loyalty to Gerard Batten, who they feel has been speaking their language, or are they going to change horses for somebody who left them in the brink before by quitting leadership when Brexit was not a done deal?
Yep, and one of the big things that's being discussed out here, and anybody who gets any spare time, do tune into the EU Parliament panel and to the website, and you get to see the debates. And the thing that's mentioned so much is they really don't want Nigel to come back. They really don't want it. And ever since there was this talk of Brexit Party or standing against European elections, from Verhofstadt all the way through to all of the senior figures, the main thing they've got in common is saying, we don't want that. We don't want that to happen. Now, I think that in itself, the fact that he's rattling their case, talking about it, is affecting their thought processes. If it, God forbid, comes to another European election, yeah, people will have to make a decision. And frankly, that is a matter of conscience. I mean, I've spoken about my conscience today. People will have to make a decision based on conscience, whether or not they'll go with a guy who has been definitely speaking a language that a lot of people believe in, or a guy who's made errors, but has a proven track record of winning and making a difference. And now that is a matter for the individual. And, I'm not going to sort of do any kind of recommendation on that. I simply think it's something that people will have to wrestle with should the time, God forbid, come.
Would the Brexit Party look to reach out to other parties such as the DVP? It sounds as though they would reach out to the Libertarian Party. I
don't know, because I'm not privy to the discussions on the Brexit Party. All I know is that it will be, should it happen, it'll be a very, very powerful force, and overnight it will leapfrog a lot of other parties in terms of its public appeal and its actually registering on opinion polls. I think that is a given. And then people will have to make up their decisions. As I just said about the voting procedure, people will have to decide whether or not the issue of Brexit overcomes all other matters, and whether or not they're prepared to throw their weight behind Nigel to drive this thing home. That, again, it's a matter for the individual.
Well, Bill Etheridge, thank you very much indeed for your time, sir. I appreciate
my pleasure, as always.
Appreciate you coming on. Just a few more comments. And hey, Bill, we've got a couple of minutes on this outro if you want to comment on any of these. Nigel Brown, play the bent rules inside a bent system. What the hell have we become? Dennis Hopper, about as much use as chocolate teapots, the bloody lot of them. Gail Marie Gandhi says voting gives them the green light to carry on with the treachery. Chris Ford says, Bill, that's rubbish. Tell people what they want to hear to get elected, then shh on them when you get elected. You call that playing the game. That's pointing the finger right at you, Bill.
I'm not sure I've done that, but fair enough if that's what he thinks. But I do exactly now what I've always said. I don't think I've ever changed.
All right. Debbie Shaw, Farage was a good orator. There are lots who have learnt about the crimes and impossibilities of getting common people's voices heard. And Caroline Stevens points out that Article 61 is from the Magna Carta. Thank you, Caroline. Yes, I'm a bit of a thickie. God bless you. Thanks, Bill. Bill Etheridge. Thank you very much indeed for popping in. I do appreciate that.
No problem.
And please give him hell in Brussels. Blimey.
Oh, I can guarantee I will.
All right. Okay. Catch you soon. You've been tuned into the Daily Brexit with me, Olly Connelly. It's Thursday, and so I'll see you on Monday. Yeah. And June Slater is here on Monday. Yeah, June Slater. Yeah. Albert Burgess popping back in on Tuesday. Yeah, I'm going to talk to him about the Supreme Court. And Robin Horsley from the Bruce Group here on Wednesday. Yeah, he was good last night. Huh? Yeah. Thanks, everybody, in the comments. God bless you in the comments. Thank you. See you next week, huh? Have a great weekend, folks. Here's to us and bugger plutocracy. Yeah.